In 2008, inside a freezing cave in Siberia, scientists found a bone so small it could fit on your fingertip. It was a finger bone. And when they ran the DNA test, the results didn't match anything in the history books. It wasn't Neanderthal. It wasn't human. It belonged to a species science had never seen before. They named it after the cave where it was found, Denisova Cave. And just like that, the story of human evolution we all learned in school started falling apart. Here's the thing that made scientists sit up straight. The DNA showed this wasn't some tiny, struggling band of survivors. This was a fully separate branch of humanity, one with abilities modern humans don't even have. And yet, you won't find them in a single history textbook. But here's the twist. This species is extinct, but their DNA isn't. Right now, in living people across Tibet, Mongolia, Papua New Guinea, and Australia, about 5% of their genetic code is still walking around in human bodies. Somewhere in the deep past, this vanished species and our ancestors crossed paths and had children together. Now, Neanderthals left behind hundreds of skeletons and fossils scattered across the globe. But Denisovans? We have almost nothing. A finger bone, a few teeth, one jawbone from the mountains of Tibet, one skull from China. That's basically the entire physical record of an entire branch of humanity. Scientists are stumped. A group powerful enough to leave genetic fingerprints in millions of people today should have left way more physical evidence behind. So why didn't they? When the Denisovan discovery went public in 2010, it didn't just add a footnote to human history. It rewrote the whole chapter. The old story was simple. Humans evolved in Africa, spread outward, and occasionally bumped into Neanderthals in Europe. Clean, tidy, done. Denisovans wrecked that tidy story. That Siberian DNA proved this wasn't some small, isolated group. And once more, fossils turned up in places like Tibet and China. It became clear. Denisovans weren't just passing through Asia. They were embedded across it, shaping the immune systems, bodies, and even the brains of the people who came after them. So what did they actually look like? Scientists started reconstructing them using the few fragments they had, and the picture that emerged was strange. Take that skull from China, nicknamed Dragon Man. It was massive, oversized compared to a modern human skull. The jawbone from Tibet, almost twice as thick as yours or mine. Their teeth were so large that some researchers compared them to something from an entirely different kind of creature. But the real shock was brain size. Denisovan skulls had roughly 20% more room for brain matter than ours. That's not just bigger, that's a completely different level of design. So does that mean they were smarter than us? Not exactly. A bigger brain doesn't automatically mean more intelligence. But when researchers dug into their DNA, they found something odd. Genes tied to neural pathways that control brain development in ways different from our own, which suggests their memory and their ability to process complex patterns may have worked on another level entirely. And it doesn't stop there. Today, people in Tibet can live comfortably at 14,000 feet, where most humans would be gasping for air. The secret is a gene called EPAS1, and it doesn't come from us. It comes from the Denisovans. That same gene shows up in the DNA extracted from that Siberian bone, long before modern humans figured out high-altitude living. Denisovans had already adapted to freezing peaks and thin air, and passed that survival code down through the generations. Oxygen efficiency wasn't their only gift. They also appear to have handed down an unusually strong immune system. While early humans were being wiped out by unfamiliar diseases, Denisovans seem to have shrugged them off like a common cold. Some researchers even suspect their cells aged more slowly than ours, meaning, in simple terms, they may have lived longer, aged slower, and stayed sharp well into old age. Put all of that together, a powerful body, an oversized brain, high-altitude survival skills, a rock-solid immune system, and possible longevity. And you get the outline of something that sounds less like ancient humans and more like an upgraded version of us. And their intelligence wasn't just written in their genes. It shows up in what they built. In 2008, that same Siberian cave produced a bracelet made of green chlorite stone. At first, it looked like a modern piece of jewelry, but carbon dating placed it at 50 to 70,000 years old. The strangest part wasn't the polish. It was a perfectly round hole drilled straight through it. Experts say a hole that precise would have needed high-speed rotary drilling. That's technology modern humans wouldn't develop for tens of thousands of years. One researcher put it bluntly, "It's like finding a modern smartphone buried in an ancient Egyptian tomb." The discoveries kept coming. In 2016, archaeologists pulled a 7-centimeter sewing needle from the same cave, roughly 50,000 years old, complete with a hole for thread. It's one of the oldest needles ever found. While our ancestors were still wrapping themselves in raw animal hides, Denisovans were tailoring clothing. They crafted beads from ostrich eggshells and left behind carved geometric patterns on stone. And symbols like that suggest something even bigger: a shared language, a way of communicating complex ideas, evidence of higher-order thinking. So forget the image of cavemen grunting in the dark. The evidence points to a species that was skilled, deliberate, and remarkably advanced. Now, if that hasn't surprised you enough, get ready, because it's about to get a lot stranger. Deep in the mountains of Siberia sits a place called Mount Shoria. Here you'll find massive stone blocks, some weighing over 3,000 tons, so large that even our most advanced modern cranes couldn't lift them. Their edges look impossibly clean, cut at sharp, precise right angles. Mainstream science generally chalks this up to natural rock formation, but it's worth noting, this location sits remarkably close to Denisovan territory. It's a striking coincidence, though not proof of anything on its own. Similar unexplained stone structures show up across Mongolia and Central Asia. Cut slabs and massive stone formations that get labeled natural, almost by default, in places where the humans living there at the time supposedly had neither the tools nor the technical knowledge to shape stone that precisely. Some of these sites even appear aligned with the sun and stars, the Mongolian stones reportedly lining up with the solstice sunrise and sunset, similar to alignments found at the Egyptian pyramids and Stonehenge. It's important to say clearly, this idea is considered fringe by mainstream archaeology, and most experts attribute these formations to natural geology or later human cultures, not Denisovans. But it's a theory that refuses to go away. Which brings us to the biggest question of all. If Denisovans really were this advanced, what wiped them out? Fossil evidence tells us Denisovans were still around roughly 40,000 years ago. That's almost the exact moment modern humans arrived in Eurasia. And history has shown us a pattern. Whenever two human species have shared the same territory, only one has ever walked away. Modern humans had numbers, and we were relentless expanders. Genetics confirms we interbred with Denisovans, which is exactly why their DNA survives in us today. But that still doesn't explain why they vanished completely. One theory suggests a slow, quiet extinction. Early humans, through sheer numbers and adaptability, gradually outcompeted and erased this advanced species from the historical record. But there's another theory, far more speculative and unproven by mainstream science, that some researchers and enthusiasts find hard to shake. It suggests Denisovans, watching the violence and chaos of expanding human populations, deliberately withdrew. That they retreated into remote mountains and deep caves, terrain they were already built for. And then, around 12,800 years ago, catastrophe struck. Scientists call this period the Younger Dryas, a time of sudden climate upheaval, rapid temperature swings, and melting ice sheets that triggered massive flooding across the globe. It's a period some connect to flood legends found in ancient cultures worldwide. Under this theory, which remains speculative and isn't accepted as established science, that upheaval may have buried whatever remained of Denisovan civilization forever. What survived, provably, is a single finger bone, small enough to miss, big enough to rewrite everything we thought we knew. And if an entire branch of humanity really could vanish this completely from history, it raises an unsettling question. What else has slipped through the cracks? What other secrets are still buried beneath our feet, just waiting to be found? I hope you enjoyed this video, and like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next amazing video.